But I think you want to, so I will just give you my perspective of, so there are so many definitions of, words like marketing and all that stuff, but I will just share my views on it, just my
Absolutely. I
experience of
want,
whatever I've
yes,
learned.
yes, absolutely. That's what I'm looking for,
Sure.
how a
Okay.
senior leader perceives it.
Sure.
So, and you will
Sure.
have your own, add your flavors to it, which people,
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's exactly why I also felt it's better that we just have a free flowing conversation rather than.
sure thing,
Yeah, okay.
sure thing. Yes, yes. So, what do you think? I'd like to hear from you. What is the difference between marketing, advertising, and branding, and how a business can leverage on, all of these so that end of the day, they can have a financial growth.
Yeah, yeah. So, see, to me, it's like marketing, advertising, and branding are branding is a subset of advertising, and advertising is a subset of marketing. Okay, so marketing is, it's kind of a terminology that is used for um, identifying a consumer's need or a need gap right up to the fulfillment of it. I think the entire chain of events is by and large marketing. Okay, now if you talk about advertising, advertising is once a product or a service has been made, then how do you make the intended consumer aware of it, or how do you drive desire for it, is advertising. So its role comes in the value chain a little bit in between, right? So that's the role of advertising. Now, what is branding? See, branding is the act of actually creating a trademark, in a way which is easily understood by the buyer and the seller. It's basically, a brand is a promise, right? Now, for example, if you come to a hotel, and when you're going to a certain hotel versus another hotel, it shapes the expectations that you have, and that is really what a brand does. A brand is a silent signal about who that product or service is and what you can expect from the product or service.
Right.
Okay, so in some ways advertising is a way of building awareness of that brand, and it's a small, it's a way of actually reaching the product or the service to the consumer. So that's the way I see it. They're like onions, different layers of it. Marketing is a much broader term. I think it will include identification of consumer needs. It will include deciding who's the consumer that you want to solve for, and it will decide it. A lot of it, marketing will also have innovation as part of it, product development as part of it. So that's the way I see it. And marketing also involves in many cases, sales, as they call it, which is demand fulfillment, right? Demand creation and demand fulfillment. So that's the way I'm seeing it. Sangeeta, any thoughts there?
Right. So I found this interesting where you said marketing, you linked it up with innovation. It'll be nice if you can
Yes.
elaborate a little there.
Okay. See, I'll tell you what I mean by innovation. Now, let's take a simple example of uh, uh, say chocolates. I'll give an example on chocolates. Okay. Now, for many years, for 50 years, chocolates never crossed into small towns and slightly lower income consumers. The single reason for that was chocolate was limited to the stores that could keep it in a cool temperature.
Right.
Right, either the store had their own refrigerator, or the Cadbury provided their own refrigerator. So in some ways the growth of Cadbury's, and in some ways the access to consumers, was restricted to those stores which had a kind of an ability to store these products. Now, that is a kind of a limitation. Now, when a marketer looks at a problem like this, now if a marketer's goal is, I want to reach chocolate. Now, for example, I'll give an example. In Cadbury's, our goal was for every confectionery user, he should be able to access chocolate.
Hmm.
Okay, so that means two things. One, it should be affordable, because somebody who's buying a confectionery, small school kid outside a small school, village school, buys a 1 rupee confectionery, it should be accessible to that child. Two, that store outside that village school also should be able to stock it. Only then have you really solved this marketing problem, right?
Right.
So
Right.
how does a marketer work about? Once you've defined the problem, one is you must find a way of delivering that product at the affordable price. Two, you must make the product travel. So one of the things that Cadbury's did was something like what we call Cadbury Shots, which is you take a chocolate but you coat it with something which is not a meltable coating, like a sugar coating. It's well, that's the way you transport it, right? But
Right.
you can make it, but still the child will feel, you know what, this is not real chocolate, so I don't want to have it, because there is always a mental thing about what is a real chocolate and this is not real. How do we create desire for this? It
Right.
cannot be seen as a poor cousin's chocolate, right? Now nobody likes that kind of stuff. It's like nano, made for poor people kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So we have to create desire to it, and that is where the whole thing about do rupe mein do laddu and that kind of stuff, because in a language that people find aspirational. So if you see, this is a marketer solving a marketing problem, but in that problem, innovating a product in such a manner that it can reach and solve the problem comes within the marketing domain. Now, whether I am doing it on my own or I'm getting somebody else to do it, innovating around a marketing mix, a product, to make sure a marketing problem is solved is a way. Like the other example is a very famous example of Colgate. Is Colgate in the US was struggling for growth, and US population was not growing for and there was no outlook on population growth as well. Penetration was 100%. Everybody is using toothpaste. Now what do we do, right? And people were so happy with the current Colgate toothpaste that they even in a slightly more expensive toothpaste were not being accepted by consumers as easily. So one way of growing is to make people pay more for a slightly better product. That was not working. So one of the things that the marketer did was see the fact that you and me use a toothpaste, so much of it is just a behavior that has kind of evolved over a period of time, right? Nobody has told us that 10 grams is the right quantity. It is defined by what you see culturally. You see your mother or father using it. The toothbrush's head is so big, so you typically fill it up. That's the way it has been done. So the way Colgate redefined the problem was they actually made the nozzle bigger,
Yes.
right? So when people were actually, so everybody just squeezes once, nobody squeezes 3 times.
Yeah.
So when you squeeze once, about 40% more toothpaste comes, and people just kept using it without thinking much about it. And in some ways, they increased their sales. So all of these are, so I'm giving these examples because these are all innovations in a product
Right.
to
Right.
make sure a marketing problem is solved. So that is why I feel innovation is a marketing subject.
Right. No, no, amazing, lovely examples. So that I'm tempted to ask you another question. Now, this
Yeah, yeah,
example of Colgate, yes, I've heard of it
yeah,
too. So, is that considered ethical? I mean, I know it's nothing wrong, but
yeah,
a consumer might look at it otherwise, right? Saying,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
probably
yeah.
cheating me to use more. So,
Absolutely. I think those questions are very much, see, marketing itself is a very gray zone. So this is again off record. See, for me, marketing, everybody markets. A doctor markets, an architect markets, you market your book, I market my product. What
right.
is marketing? Marketing is knowledge of human beings, psychology, and desires, and using it to sell a product or a service. Okay. In itself, it's got ethical questions in it. Okay. But that's a lot of it is, when you give alms to somebody, when you give somebody outside a temple money, some people can say you're doing it to assuage your own guilt. You got nothing, you don't really care for that other person. So these kind of ethical questions can always come up, right? And I've always faced this,
Right.
during Diwali, if I want to go give somebody some chocolate, somebody will say, why? So certainly you're right that these ethical questions are there, and these questions are not limited to marketing alone. Okay, these questions are there everywhere.
Mm.
If somebody wants to be a leader of this country, does he want to lead this country for himself or for the people? Those questions are there. You never know, you know. So I wouldn't go there because it's a complicated subject. But
Sure.
yes, at its heart, it is understanding, and in some ways, using that understanding to sell a product or a service. Sometimes that understanding can be used to solve problems of consumers. Sometimes it could be used to kind of take advantage of it. There are various permutations and combinations in this. Yes, I think so. The Colgate one is an obvious case of a debatable, I would say, choice about what they did. But equally, I can give you many examples where some of the choices that brands have taken has possibly led to a net increase in human happiness. That's also there.
True, true. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I think you rightly said that it's a gray area. Yeah, and I think it
yeah,
depends on
it
how
is a,
each one perceives it.
Yes, and there are no, you cannot find black and white answers to it. It all depends. You're absolutely correct. In my view, I might be thinking I'm doing the right thing, but you could well argue, and rightly so, that it's not the right thing to do. Yeah.
Right. Super. Okay. So during the current age and time, should it only be digital marketing, which is supposed to be like the best way of marketing? And if yes, why? And if not, what would you recommend? Do you still
This is a good question,
in the
Sangeeta, and I
traditional
thought
way?
about this question as you wrote this.
Mhm.
This is a live question that we are grappling with as marketers. Okay. See, if you, I think the way I have answered this is very simple. What is, see, marketing is a big subject. Now let's talk about advertising itself for a smaller, digital advertising. What is advertising and what's its fundamental purpose? The purpose of advertising is that you want to talk about your product or a service to an intended recipient, such that it drives a positive response from that person. Correct? It's as simple as that. Now, if it is as simple as that, then the choices then become, how do I choose the mediums that take this message to my intended recipient? And that has to be anchored to where my recipient is today. It's got nothing to do with what I think about it. For example, if I am selling a Lamborghini car, it's not like TV advertising is there are no rules there, right? So Lamborghini only wants to sell 1,000 cars in a year, right? And they're not interested in selling, so the way they will choose their marketing makes their consumer target. Who will they go to? Where will they go to? What they do? Versus somebody who's selling a 10 rupee packet of biscuits, what they do. So it's entirely dependent on the product or the service you're selling and your intended recipient. Everything follows from there. Okay. So if your intended target and your recipient is somebody living in small town villages, uneducated, for example, then the means by which you will reach them is through oral media, through jingles or whatever that could be. That's, and through radio, because they are listening to radio, or they are in the fields, so you paint your walls or whatever that might be. So the medium is a choice, and it's that's the fundamental level. Now I'm assuming that you're talking about digital marketing because the product or service that you are intending to sell has the users are in the world of digital. For example, let's take a simple example of a book in English. In India, you're an author. How many people actually buy English books? In India, it's not much, and most of them are actually in digitally quite active. So let's come to that. The way I see it is two things. One is, yes, is the medium that you're choosing to propagate, is it appropriate? Assume it is yes. Yes, it is appropriate because they're spending time on Facebook, spending time on Instagram. So yes, okay. Then the question is, this is a question which is a slightly harder one, is what are the points of receptivity? Just because somebody is in the digital world does not mean they're necessarily receptive to communication at all points in time. Okay, so to understand receptivity is important. Two, receptivity also depends on the content. And so one is whether I'm choosing or whether I'm in the frame of mind to receive information. Two, even if I'm open to receiving the information, what kind of content am I willing to receive? Simple example, you're on Instagram, you want to just spend some downtime, you know and and today human behavior is shaped by fast tidbit consumption and so on and so forth. So even there you decide on what kind of information, how much should it be, what type of, it should be visual, should it be textual. So those are the kinds of things. So if I go back to your original question, I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what is the relevance of the different mediums to the target intended consumer, and choose your where to play. After you've chosen your where to play, how to win is about choosing points of receptivity. For example, I'll give you a simple example. Like if you're a mom, for example, you have to buy a diaper for your child, right? Now you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're going to the store, you go to e-commerce sites, you talk to your friends. There are so many potential spaces that I can reach you. Now when I say receptivity, what do I mean by that? What we have learned in Kimberly Clark, we are into diapers and all that stuff, is mothers are most receptive to recommendations that they receive from their friends.
Correct.
It's almost 100 times more powerful than a TV advertising. Okay, for all the TV advertising they might have seen, if another mom or a friend of yours says, you know what, don't buy that, buy this, you'll immediately change your mind. So the power of receptivity of recommendation is 100 times more than television commercial. Now, a marketer might say, you know what, she's watching TV for 2 hours every day. So you'll very well be right in advertising on TV. But the receptivity of that mother to a point of television commercial is 1/100th of a. So then, if a marketer is smart, he will know, okay, fine, she's watching TV. But what will it take us to convince her on through a TV ad versus a recommendation? Now, if I want to do a recommendation, then I can come to you or your friend and say, you know what, use my product. If you were to recommend my product to another person, I will give you X, Y, or Z. I'm not going into the ethics and the thing. It's an action that somebody chooses to either do or not do. And if that person reaches out to 10 other people, her friends, and says, you know what, I like this product, I've genuinely tried it, while I might be getting some coupons or whatever that might be, but I wouldn't be doing it if I don't find this is good for you. If she says that to you, then possibly 100 television commercials wouldn't have achieved what that is achieving. So that is why I feel that way. So the answer, the way I look at the simple way to digital advertising is, there was radio advertising because everybody was listening to radio. Then came TV because everybody was watching TV practically 4 or 5 hours. Today, my children are practically digital, completely digital. I'm between digital and TV. So to keep my answer simple, they cannot be a product or a service, particularly if you're targeting higher English educated Indians, which can ignore digital marketing, because that is where people are spending time on. And there are various deceptivities also available in digital marketing. So that is the way I would say, to keep it simple, extremely important in a certain kind of a context.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, sure. That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
how should a good marketing strategy look like for a business?
Yeah. See, a marketing strategy starts with who's your consumer, what's your business goal. These are the two things that will shape marketing strategy. Strategy is an answer to a problem. It's not like a one size fits all, same strategy for everything. Within the company, there could be 100 strategies in play. For example, I'll give an example. For example, if I'm selling a product like a Cadbury Dairy Milk, it's been there for 60 years. How do I sell more of it? The strategy will be different. If I'm launching a new product, it could be, say, Cadbury Dark Milk or something like that, which I just launched 6 months back. The strategy for that is entirely different, right? So it all starts with, what is the marketing task that you're trying to solve? What is the business task you're trying to solve? And who do you want to solve it with? And strategy is a process to solve it. Now let me come to the process of strategy. Strategy is a disciplined set of actions designed to achieve a certain outcome. That's the way I understand it. Now, a set of actions cannot be devoid of the context, cannot be devoid of the intended target audience. So hence strategy can be separated as two parts: where to play, how to win. Okay, this is a strategy, this is not my invention. It's a classical, I'm sure in your career you would have heard this, as you. So where to play is a bit of a broad terminology, but who do you want to, you know get the business from? Who do you want to communicate to? Why is this the right user? Why not this the right user? All those choices you make. For example, I will go after the top 10 cities, I will go whichever that might be. That is the way to play. And how to win is, starting from segmentation, targeting, positioning, the classical marketing tools, that you segment a user based on their needs, either it is their, or their beliefs and their attitudes towards a certain category, right? You choose them, you segment them. For example, in your case, aware non-buyers, people who can afford to buy a book of English, who read English books. But you will have those segments, and for each segment, your strategy will differ.
Right.
Right? For example, there could be some people who buy books in brick and mortar stores. There could be some people who discover books on Amazon, for example. There could be, so those kinds of things. So you decide your where to play. You choose your where to play. 1, 2, 3 are my segments. Then you understand that segments needs, barriers, and drivers. What motivates them? What demotivates them? What do they need? Once you understand that, you solve them. That's how you get people to finally come to your product. So that is really, to me, strategy. So just for you, since I've spoken a lot, I will say strategy is a process of um, identifying target recipients and intended target consumers, understanding the needs and barriers, and kind of to achieve the outcome, overcoming those needs and barriers, using those. So that's really the way I see it.
Right, right. Awesome.
Sangeeta. Yeah.
One little question there. When you started, you said it has to do with the business goals.
Yeah.
Now, I have come across some businesses which just say my ultimate goal is to make money. So, I mean, it's not really specific. They don't seem to have a clear purpose, so they're not driven. So, if somebody like that, how can one really narrow down?
No, so you can make money, but anybody who's made money knows. So somebody who has starts with a goal like that never makes any money, because I think I want to be rich. Nobody ever. Some. I think they have to know why will somebody give their money to them. That's how you become rich, right? Why will somebody come and buy my product or whatever it might be? So if it is, let's take an example, like any businessman will know which domain they want to play and what problem are they willing to solve, what either what problem they're willing to solve or what service they're willing to bring in, what product they're willing to bring in. You have to finally choose down to a set of actions. Your motivator might be money, but the why would somebody pass that money to you have to answer that in a very compelling manner. So ultimately the choice making is something that has to happen.
Mm.
It has to happen. Even if somebody like for example, if you take Sun TV in Tamil Nadu, at the
Mm.
end of the day, he knew that Doordarshan is going to be finished and that there's going to be cable television and people are going to move to that. I think he knew the moment and he sharp targeted it, and he knew, so at the end of the day, you bring a service for which people are willing to pay 100, 200, 300 rupees per day. That's the way you end up. So the process of, see, there are two things on reflection. It's a great question. On reflection, if I see, the ultimate motive is could be money, but to make that, a set of choices will have to be made, and that is where the process of strategy comes. Where to play, what problem will I solve, and how to win in that comes. And then once this basic level of thing is solved, how do I win better? Now, for example, if I've taken a flight to come here, now everybody knows people who want to move from X to Y is what I'm trying to do. And then, so it's not a big strategy. The strategy there is at a more sophisticated level around how, sharper how to win, a sharper how to play, where to play. For example, people who don't mind paying 10% more if they're made to feel safer, or if they're made to feel a little bit more special in their trip. Okay, then someone like a Vistara comes in and says that, you know what, you'll pay 20% more, but I'll serve you meals, your seat will be a little bit better, it'll be cleaner. So that's a, not everybody goes after only one set of consumers and Vistara. So that's what I'm saying. So the sophisticated, see, all this will be like ABCD to you because these are all obvious examples I'm giving you. But every business makes these choices about what precise. Otherwise, if they don't know what they're doing, then it's like a lion, chasing everything that is in front of it and losing everything out. It has to
Correct.
target one and go after one. That is what I mean. So strategy is a very disciplined set of processes, and that's what even Peter Drucker would say, that pursuit of anything is not strategy.
Mm.
Okay, just
Yeah.
like everything and everything, I would no, that's not strategy. Strategy is a disciplined pursuit of a few goals. So that is only because that is what that's when those the actions become sharper. Otherwise, you're more in the. But an organization can do many things. Like, it doesn't mean that there's an organization like Tata. There can be 30 industries. That's perfectly fine. But in each industry, in each brand, for each product, there has to be a disciplined strategy for it to survive and to grow. That's what I meant.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Thanks. So the next thing is what kind of marketing techniques are to be adopted, and what are the parameters one should consider?
Yeah. So, see, on parameters, Sangeeta, I think it again depends on what you're doing. But let me give you a sense of what you're talking about. Now, let's take advertising within marketing. What kind of parameters do we use, right? Then let's take television as an example. We talk about, firstly, everything starts with the target audience. Like, for example, if I want to talk about all uh, English book buying audiences of India is my target audience. And I would probably have a sense that there are 5 lakh people or 1 lakh people or whatever that might be. In that target audience, then comes efficacy. Like, for example, what we call reach and frequency are two typical advertising metrics we use: RNF, reach and frequency. That is, with this target audiences, what percentage of them have I reached? Okay. And what, like, for example, out of 1 lakh people, I've reached 40%, I've reached 50%. And then comes frequency. How many people have I reached once? How many people have reached thrice? So So that is one kind of metrics. The other kind of metrics is return on investment, which you know very well as a finance person. That's something that you know at the back of your hand, right? That's ultimately where it all adds up. To say that, you know what, I have spent 1 lakh rupees. At the end of the day, that's what. And advertising is a notoriously tough subject to measure. Okay, you don't know why somebody bought something. A marketer can argue they bought it because of they saw my ad. Somebody could argue because their friends told them they bought it. That you will probably never know. Yeah, many sciences are there. There's something called market mix modeling, where people go and ask people, why did you buy something? So there's a big chain reaction that happens. But so ROI is another kind of an important tool. Now you come to digital marketing. I'll give another example. You put up a banner on top of in Facebook. Okay, CTRs, we call it, click through rates. How many people clicked through that? Okay, after you have clicked through, there's a metric called conversions. You go to Amazon, you see the thing, and so 100 people clicked my ad. I showed that to 100 people. 50 of them clicked through. Out of the 50 who clicked through, 20 converted. So that's again a marketing funnel measurement from a digital perspective. From a television perspective, the funnel again will be measured through reach, frequency, the conversion, repeat, loyalty. And the marketing funnel, you have written it. How does the funnel go? It goes from awareness to interest to consideration to trial to repeat to loyalty. And so that's the way this whole funnel keeps working. And in every one of them, in every one of the funnels, there are sub metrics within that, within awareness. So that's the way but did I give you a flavor of how this works?
Yes, yes, yeah, you did. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. So,
And the other one that just to kind of, since I made this note, is there are tangible benefits and there are intangible benefits. Okay, there is normally, when in a business meeting, um, tangible benefits everybody can understand, numbers, right? ROI and all that stuff. But real brands are built through intangibles, and that is the toughest part about brand builders. That is the toughest thing to understand about brand building. So when a business is run by big huge committees, those committees never build great brands, because great brands are like parenting. Only a mother knows exactly what a child needs. Only a child knows what a mother needs. When a committee raises a child, it's always a lot tougher. Or when a committee advises a mom to raise a child, because it's a very intimate, slightly intangible equation out there. Okay, as you will know, the reason why I want to point that out is great brands are built as much by belief, as much by insight and inspiration, than by sheer numbers.
true.
Okay, and I can give you 100 examples of brands which have spent a lot of money but have completely not achieved anything. And I can give you equally. I can so it's a subject which requires a longer conversation. But on the intangible side, measuring intangibles also is a big subject in marketing. Like we have things called brand equity. What is equity itself is a very big question. Equity is a sum total of the intangibles that consumers associate with a brand, what they're willing to pay for. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. Same bed, same this one, but I might be willing to pay twice the amount of money for a brand of hotel versus another brand which has just come up, because I don't know what to make out of them. So they will start to associate themselves with some celebrity or something, passing on their intangibles to the new brand, because people value these things, right? So those are the intangibles. Like what does Kamal Hassan mean in the world of Tamil Nadu? Is he possibly means a certain rigor, and I don't know what he means, but I'm just saying. So people are trying to transfer his values into a certain product when they don't have their own values. So those things matter a lot. It's not only people don't, and always they say rationalization is what comes later. Decision comes first. A lot of people believe decision comes at the end of rationalization, but 90% of the time it's a proven science that people choose in the blink. System 1, system 2. If you've read Daniel Kahneman, the great psychologist, he will tell you that there is system 1, which is a blink response. Over 3,300 million years, our minds have been trained to, in a blink, know whether there's danger or no danger, whether this is good or bad, it's a good smile or a bad smile, or a good person or a bad person. That's system 1. System 2, and that's your instinct, right? And system 2 is then you start to marshal existing available resources, either to back up your blink response or to overcome it. To say, okay, you know what? Hang on, I feel this person is bad, but let me just look around the shoes or whatever. Okay, it looks okay. So that's system two. Even brands, even as brand managers, we also recognize that. A lot of the times when we write a brief, we write only rationalizations, right? We have to provide this, the color should be this should be that. But often people choose on a blink. They like an ad, they like a face, they like a piece of music, whatever that might be. Measuring that, and just to kind of for you to think over as you write this book, is measuring the intangibles is the holy grail of marketing. And either you have to have faith or you have to have measures. But if you have that, then great brands are possible. But if you're only dependent on ROI and so on and so forth, the set of choices that you'll be making and the set of decisions that you'll be making will be at a kind of a limited domain. I'm not saying they're not useful, but they won't really be as big.
Right.
So that's the yeah.
I know that's interesting, the tangible and the intangible part. That's good.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
what would be like, what is an amount that a business should set aside for
Spend.
marketing spend? Because I mean, what is like a healthy number?
Again, Sangeeta, see, again, sorry, I'm telling you again and again, the answer is it depends. Because, see, it again depends on where the brand is, where the company is, what is the task. There's no like, this is how much a business. I'll give an example. If you take Geo, when Geo launched 7 years back, they used to lose money practically, right? They were putting in billions into building their fiber optic network, and billions in building their brand and awareness and so on and so forth. So at that stage, possibly their advertising to sales would have been at as high as 70, 80%, God knows. And they would have been on deep loss. As you will know, as a CFO, you know the math, right, of how it works.
Yeah.
But when you see an outlook around where a business is going, except, you need to build a brand and over a period of time, user base, and that user base lifetime value will start to play out and we'll make money. So the answer to how much should a business spend on a marketing campaign or whatever depends on the task at hand. Depend Even within a company, like if Cadbury's is launching Oreo biscuits, possibly it's new. The amount of money I need to spend for people to become aware of it, to overcome their barriers to try it, will be far more than if the amount of money I will spend to sell a dairy milk, for example, where people, everybody is aware of it. So it's very context dependent. It's very consumer task dependent. I think the marketing spend has to be not a, I mean, in reality, life starts with this much money is all I've got. And, that's way. But the other way to work around this, what is our business task? What do we need to do to achieve that business task? And how much do we need to spend to make that happen? That's how budget should ideally emerge. Once that's emerged, then we can decide saying, you know what, we don't have so much money. Then can we tap down our business resource, or can we think more creatively about this money? So that's a little bit differently, but there's no fixed amount. As you know, if you look at balance sheets and so on, in different different industries, FMCG industry, anywhere between 4 to 10% would be A and P to sales. But it all depends on context. I'm talking about steady state FMCG companies like Unilever or Cadbury's. Anywhere in the range of 6 to 10% is what I have seen. But then again, depends on each segment.
Sure, sure.
Some guys don't even spend any money, like it's almost 1% in advertising.
What are your thoughts on frugal marketing? Especially if they are like startups, for instance, they are bootstrapped or they have huge budget constraints.
No, so frugal marketing is, I think it's I don't know whether the terminology that exists, but I think what you're saying is, how do we make small budgets work hard? In some way, something like that, right? I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in that ways, I think I think when you have less money, the identification of target audience and the identification of tools and means to get them has to be even sharper. Okay. For example, if you have got, say, 1 lakh rupees in your pocket and you want to get 10,000 people to buy it, that means at 10 rupees per conversion, you have to make this work, and that's the funnel that you have to work through. Then it starts with, you can take that 1 lakh rupees and, spend it behind 10,000 people who with various degrees of intent and target. So your targeting has to be super sharp. Once your targeting is super sharp, the communication that you share with them has to have the ability to convert them. So what you say and how you say has to be super sharp. It's a lot of people think marketing means medium. I do digital marketing. No. If anybody gives you such an advice, I think you should just stop and stare a little bit about it, because a medium is just a a little bit later down. It's like going to a hotel and thinking the waiter is the most important person in the hotel. No, I think it all starts with the cook, the person sitting inside, right? I think that is where the magic starts, and nobody sees that person. So that's the way I would say. So a sharper, more clearer definition of target audience, a sharper, more clearer, writing of what exactly you say, and that's the only way I know. If I can think of frugal marketing,
Right.
much more sharper execution of fundamentals, I would say, is frugal marketing. Yeah.
Okay. Would do you think content marketing comes under that?
Absolutely comes under that. Again, content marketing is another way of going to where consumers are. It's at a fundamental, that's what it is. It comes under that because it may not take much money to do it, right? And it's a way of achieving a degree of visibility and fame, with the quality of our ideas in free to use mediums, right? So
Right.
that becomes a very and I know a lot of authors use it, a lot of brands use it today, a lot of companies use it to build their own reputation, say example on LinkedIn and so on and so forth. Absolutely fine, as long as the content in itself is something that builds your reputation in the right direction. Then it's a fabulous way of doing it, particularly, as you said, for people who may not have the resources of companies, who have a lot big balance sheet. I think content marketing, and also content marketing in some ways does the targeting for you automatically, right? If you're talking about, say, LinkedIn or somebody, you're already talking about somebody who has access to the digital ecosystem, who can speak English. So already you're well down the value chain there. And yeah, so yeah, I think absolutely great. It's probably the best um, space for frugal marketing, particularly in certain kind of domains. Yeah.
Super. Okay. Okay. So how can a business ensure that it's doing full justice to the marketing spend? And should the returns be 10x, 100x? You know, what is like a good parameter?
Again, as you know, as you would have seen from the tenor of my conversation from beginning, I don't know the answers to that. There is no fixed thing in a industry, in a certain ecosystem. Possibly you can draw those benchmarks. For example, amongst 20 writers last year who spent 1 lakh each, person A got an ROI of 5. Maybe in that context you can say this is the right thing to do, but 100x, 10x, it's too broad. We don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, in a certain industry, in a certain context, you're able to set those benchmarks. That is why even in our own benchmarking, we are also a little careful about benchmarking new launches, old launches,
Right. Right.
people targeting. So yeah, so that's what I would say. I think the answer to that is dependent on the context and the specific task you're doing, but it is possible to, and benchmarking actually opens up our own minds that we can do better, or we are doing better and so on. It's necessary, but it comes way down the thinking hierarchy about what we're doing. And I think that's where the answer would come, 10x or 20x, whatever that might be.
Okay. So, what are some of the important financial metrics for marketing management, and is it different for a B2B and a B2C?
Yeah, so we spoke about it. I think cost of acquisition is a big financial metric. Lifetime value is a big financial metric. I'll give an example. If I get somebody to buy a Lamborghini car, I'm just giving an example. It could be any car. I mean, it doesn't matter. The lifetime value of that car, once that person buys, first of all, the value of the purchase itself is huge. Then that person services it, and over a period of time, a company stands to make, and the parts and the services possibly adds up as much money as the cost of the car itself over the next 10 years. So there's a certain lifetime value to that. For someone like me, for example, selling a packet of biscuit or something like that at that point in time, the lifetime value of the consumer itself may not be that high. So the way I think about it is, I won't spend 1 lakh catching one person. I might spend 20 rupees getting a lot more people. So it all depends. So lifetime value, cost of acquisition, then cost to reach. I think those becomes marketing metrics. The other more important marketing metric also is retention, measuring retention, because in the funnel, I'm talking about top of the funnel now. If you come bottom of the funnel, repeat ratios, recommendation ratios, product ratings, for example, on Amazon, in your case, for example, that's a huge, if somebody wants to buy a book, that's an important metric too, because people decide on whether to buy a book or not depending on how others have rated the book. That's also, so there is a set of metrics around retention that becomes important, and there's a set of metrics around loyalty that becomes important. How many people have recommended a product? So again, Sangeeta, if you ask me for all marketing questions, the funnel is a starting point.
Right.
If you really go to the funnel and say this from right from non-aware to aware, right up to advocacy and loyalty. If you draw the funnel, all of these questions can be very commonsensically answered. If you see, and I don't have to be a marketer to really say that, but at different levels of the funnel, there are different metrics that you measure. And each brand goes through its own journey. Like, for example, I'll give an example. Um, a brand could, for example, take its product as a fixed variable and keep getting more and more people at the top. Okay, saying this is my product, I cannot change it. So the more people I recruit to come and see the product, even if 20% of them drop off, I'll make more money. That's one way of thinking about it. A more frugal marketing approach could be, you know what, I don't have much money to get more people at the top. But instead of losing 2 out of every 5 people that I'm getting, I'll build a product that loses only 1 out of every 5, or doesn't lose anybody. It could be any goal. So that's a smart way of saying. So instead of saying I will get, so that's another way. So again, it's a funnel approach. Somebody will say, I don't have much money to do this, so I will build a better product. Or knowing that recommendations and ratings are so important, I will not get people from the top. I will completely forget about it. I'll build as good a product as possible. Then I will really work on people who have read my book to get 5 more people to buy my book. So how do I get them to get activated? How do I create communities around that, and so on? So there are various ways of, and then you will say there that my repeat rate has moved from 3 out of 5 to 4.5 out of 5. Great. And out of the 4.5 I repeated, I got each person to get 5 more people. So again, the measurements change there, right? The measurement changes there. So that is the way I would say. It's a very complex subject, but at its heart, it's simple, in the sense that at different parts of the funnel, there are different goals, and each goal has its own metric. And you can pick and choose whichever you feel is the right one based on your budgets and your needs and so on.
Great. So yeah, thanks for explaining the marketing funnel. So is there a way to build one effectively?
100%. Without building a marketing funnel, you cannot market a product. I think in the sense that every consumer, in some ways, either in a blink or in a very deliberate way, goes through the funnel. Nobody decides to buy something without, so ultimately the funnel is a recognition and an acknowledgement of the process users go through before buying or using a product, and what happens after it. It's a abstraction about the user behavior that actually happens on the ground. So if that is the truth, then the way to build it is for every product. Like, for example, if it's a book or it's a mobile phone, it's a laptop computer, how do people become aware of it? How many people in a year buy it? How many, so between awareness to trial, what are the factors that plays a role? For some people it might be price, for some people reliability, for some people it could be style. All those factors are there for to trial. And like in cars, for example, for every 10% who takes a test drive, 1% buys it. But even if there are millions of people, for example, if somebody advertises, say, a Mercedes Benz on IPL, practically 99% of the people who watch that ad will not buy that product. Okay, but they're watching it by the fact that it is being served on IPL. 99% of the. So what matters for a Mercedes Benz marketer is how many people land in the Mercedes Benz either website asking for a test drive or actually land in their showroom. That is really where the funnel for him really starts. And then he knows when somebody comes into my showroom, out of every 10 people who come, I convert 4. So the way he sees is, okay, fine, I know this funnel works for me. Instead of getting 10, I should get 100 for 4 to become 40. Or the other way to think is, today I get 10, I convert 4. What can I do or say, or which can make 4 to 6? So you know what I mean? That's how a marketing funnel is constructed. So every marketer should know his funnel. How is his business happening today? Who's making, and what are the conversion ratios? Once he knows his funnel, then you can keep changing it. So that's how a marketing funnel is constructed. Sangeeta, was I clear?
Yes, yeah, perfect. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's just that everybody needs to be aware of it, which doesn't happen most of the time, what I've observed. Yeah, right. Sure.
Yeah.
So,
because marketing is treated like an art. It's not an art. There's a small part of it which is an art, but marketing is a science. What I mean by science is it's replicable.
Right.
It's not like It's I can, if I have learned it, everybody can learn it. I'm not some artist or anybody like that. So that's the way it is. It's a very replicable science. Everybody can learn it. Everybody can apply it. The principles are simple.
Right. Interesting. Interesting. So, what should be a like an ideal size for a marketing team, depending on the size of the business, and is it good to outsource the marketing function? And if
Yeah.
yes, when?
Again, the answer is it depends.
Mm.
It depends on who does the thinking and so on and so forth. The answer is both models have worked. I know many small companies which have outsourced their marketing and are successful. So it all depends. It all depends. Even the size depends on the size of the company. Like Mondelez will have 70 people in its marketing team because of its size. When I joined Mondelez, there were 15 people in Mondelez. So there's no one size or thing. It all depends on how much attention is required to manage a brand. See, as I told you, marketing is you must have enough people thinking about the consumer, their insight, what are the problems they have. So because marketing is an end-to-end process, it's not just about advertising. So if you get an advertising agency to come in and solve your marketing problems, they will only think about advertising concepts. They will not think about innovation, for example. So they will only think about selling what is existing in different ways. Maybe somebody, if a true marketer, will come back and say, you know what, it's not about how I sell it. It's about what my product is. It good or bad? So you will probably fix the product, as I told you. Uh, so it all depends on what kind of skill sets you need to bring in. I personally feel a good marketing team should have enough people paying attention to the entire marketing funnel, from consumer insight and understanding of consumer insight to product delivery. There should be somebody, or one person also can pay attention. Doesn't matter that there should be a team, but you must have somebody paying attention to it so that they can influence it. As long as that is made available, whether one person or a set of people are required to do that, is perfectly fine. And that's why many organizations will have brand managers. Like that brand manager only thinks about that brand,
Right.
right? And so there's nothing else that person thinks about, and they all become as an agglomeration the marketing team. But if you really look at it, there's one person looking at one problem or one brand. So that way, if you really add it up, if you have one brand to sell, if that person has enough attention, all you need is one person marketing team to think about it. And then obviously you can go to some agency to make an advertising, you can go to some research agency to do some research for him or her. So that's the way I would answer that.
Cool. And what would be some of the not to do's that a business should avoid and be aware of marketing?
I don't know. So what I would say is that as a marketer, I've had more failures than successes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
Mm.
if you see, successes happen when there is a connection between what the consumer want and what the brand or product offers. When that connection is there, and there's a match of expectations and possibly a delight in the expectations, magic happens. The problems are a mismatch between understanding and delivery. There's a mismatch. You could be bringing a good product but to the wrong person, or a average product. So what to avoid? If I were to say, it's a very broad question, so there's no right or wrong answers. What I would say is, basing any plan on very flimsy or unthought through problem definition is a sure shot way of failing. That much I've learned. Now, after understanding problems itself, success rate is 10%. If you don't even know what you're talking about, then it's even lesser.
Right.
So that is what I would say. I would say a humble, open-minded problem definition is a good starting point. When a problem definition is muddled, even if you succeed, it's not a replicable success. Because you don't know why you succeeded, and next time
Correct.
you still
You
start
can't
with not
replicate
knowing.
it. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. Awesome. I think, yeah, that's good. That has been very useful, and
Thank you, Sangeeta.
I will be